The alien queen smiled and gave me a choice. I froze where I stood. Sci-Fi Story HFY. The great chamber of the Virelian hive was silent in a way that made even hardened warriors uneasy. The room was vast, carved from dark crystal that reflected light like still water. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, pulsing slowly, as if the chamber itself was alive and watching. Hundreds of alien nobles stood in perfect rows, their many eyes fixed on a single human figure at the center of the floor. Captain Elias Rowan stood alone. He wore no armor, no weapons, only a simple diplomatic uniform. His hands were relaxed at his sides, though his heart beat hard inside his chest. He could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. Entire civilizations had stood where he stood now. None of them had walked away free. At the far end of the chamber, upon a raised platform shaped like a throne grown rather than built, sat the alien queen. She was enormous, her form both graceful and terrifying. Layers of iridescent armor covered her body, shifting colors as she moved. Her many limbs rested calmly, and her crown-like crest rose high above her head. Her eyes, ancient, sharp, and endlessly patient, studied Elias as one might study a puzzle that had resisted being solved for far too long. This was the queen of the Virelian hive, ruler of the largest empire the galaxy had ever known. She had conquered more worlds than humans had even discovered. Elias felt his throat tighten, but he did not look away. Humans had learned long ago that fear only grew stronger when given space. So he stood, breathing slowly, grounding himself in the simple facts. He was here. Humanity was here. And whatever happened next would shape their future. The queen leaned forward slightly, and then, to the shock of every being in the chamber, she smiled. It was not a cruel smile nor a mocking one. It was calm, controlled, curious. A murmur rippled through the alien observers. Virelians did not smile, not at prey, not at enemies, not at allies. Smiles were reserved for moments of certainty. Elias felt his muscles tense despite his will. That smile frightened him more than any roar or threat could have. "Human," the queen said, her voice echoing directly inside his mind. It was smooth, layered, as if many voices spoke as one. "You stand before me without chains. Do you know why? You have expanded quickly. You have fought among yourselves, survived disasters, and adapted faster than projections allowed. This makes you noticeable. Yet you sent only one. Often the difference is small." Each step sent a faint vibration through the floor. When she reached the edge of the platform, she looked down at Elias from a height that made her seem like a living monument. "Every species that reaches this stage receives one outcome," she said. "Integration into the hive, their cultures preserved, their conflicts ended, their choices removed. Integration meant survival, but at a terrible cost. No freedom, no independent future, a quiet, safe existence as part of something larger. For most," the queen continued, "this is mercy." It showed human history, wars, rebuildings, failures, inventions. It moved quickly but clearly. Humanity falling, then standing again, again and again. "You break," the queen said, "and then you change. You do not remain broken. Not because you seek conquest, but because you refuse stillness." He froze where he stood, not from fear alone, but from the crushing weight of possibility. Every instinct screamed that this was a test, and that misunderstanding it would doom them all. The queen waited patiently, watching his reaction. After a long moment, Elias forced himself to speak. "What kind of choice?" "The other risks everything you are. Of worlds protected by the hive's power, of an end to suffering." Then the queen gestured to the second symbol. "Or," she said, "you may prove you deserve your independence." "That," she said, "is the question that defines civilizations." "If we fail," he asked, the queen did not hesitate. "Your species will be absorbed, your name will fade into hive memory." "You already know what we'll choose," he said. The queen's smile became something else entirely, something close to satisfaction. "Yes," she replied, "I do." His legs felt heavy, but his steps were steady. Behind him, the alien queen watched in silence. For the first time in centuries, she felt something unexpected. Anticipation. The human fleet waited at the edge of Virelian space like a held breath. Dozens of ships floated in silent formation, their lights dimmed, weapons powered but inactive. Inside the command ship, Captain Elias Rowan stood before the assembled leaders of humanity, admirals, scientists, diplomats, and representatives from Earth and the outer colonies. They watched him closely as he spoke. "The Queen has given us a choice," Elias said. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. Integration into the hive, or a trial that decides whether humanity remains free. What is the trial? Elias looked at the faces around him. Fear was there, so was hope. Humanity had always lived between those two forces. "We were not built to be safe," Elias said. "We were built to try." A massive artificial system appeared, vast structures orbiting a dead star, surrounded by shifting energy fields. The hive transmitted only limited information. The rest, they said, humans would discover by doing. When the human delegation arrived, the scale of the trial became clear. There were no instructions carved in stone, no clear enemy. Instead, there were environments harsh, changing, and unfamiliar. Gravity shifted without warning. Atmospheres changed composition. Resources appeared scarce, then abundant, then vanished again. The hive observers watched from a distance. "This is unfair," one Virelian strategist clicked. "They lack unity. They will fracture." Problems were shared openly. Arguments happened, but they led to solutions. When gravity spikes crushed equipment, humans redesigned tools instead of abandoning them. When food sources failed, they experimented, combining knowledge from different colonies. No single leader gave every order. Leadership shifted based on need. The hive found this strange. "They do not obey," a Virelian observer noted. "They collaborate," another corrected. Days passed, then weeks. The trial escalated. Structures rearranged themselves, forcing humans to relocate repeatedly. Communication interference increased. Isolation set in. That was when the psychological pressure began. The hive had perfected this phase. Other species broke here. Panic, despair. Internal conflict. Humans struggled, but they did not collapse. Instead, they talked. Crew members shared stories. Scientists taught engineers things they didn't need to know, simply to keep minds active. Soldiers organized physical training, not for combat but for morale. When one outpost failed, another sent help without waiting for orders. The Queen leaned forward as she watched. "They endure," she murmured. "They always endure," replied an advisor. "But endurance is not enough." Elias addressed the remaining teams. "We can't control what we face," he said, "but we can control how we face it." "They are learning the trial itself," an observer said uneasily. "They are reshaping it," another added. The Queen's smile returned, faint but unmistakable. As the weeks turned into months, the trial reached its final stage. A single message echoed across human channels. Only one path leads forward. Before Elias could respond, the trial zone split into separate regions. Each human group faced a different challenge. Some were offered comfort and safety if they stayed where they were. Others were offered power, advanced technology, superior tools. A few were offered escape, immediate extraction, but alone. It was the ultimate test, division. The hive expected humans to choose individually, to fracture, to fail. Instead, something unexpected happened. Humans communicated. They shared what each group was offered. They debated, they argued, they feared. And then slowly a consensus formed. No group accepted safety alone. No group chose power without responsibility. No one left others behind. They chose the hardest option, to move forward together, even if it meant slower progress and greater risk. When the trial system detected this unified choice, it hesitated. The programming had not expected it. The Queen stood. "They have answered," she said quietly. The final challenge unfolded not as an enemy, but as a choice repeated again and again under pressure. Each time, humanity chose cooperation over convenience. At the end, the trial structures powered down. Silence filled the region. The human fleet waited, unsure if they had passed, or if this silence meant judgment. Then the Queen's voice echoed across all channels. "Humanity," she said, "you have endured." She did not yet say the result, but for the first time since entering Hive space, humanity felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, expectation. The silence after the Queen's announcement felt heavier than any threat. Human ships floated still, their crews waiting for a judgment that would decide everything. No one celebrated. No one spoke loudly. They had learned during the trial that loud confidence often came before failure. Captain Elias Rowan stood on the command deck, hands clasped behind his back. He stared at the distant glow of the Virelian structures as they slowly powered down. Parts of them faded into darkness, as if the trial itself were withdrawing to watch from the shadows. "They haven't said we passed," Admiral Chen said quietly. "No," Elias replied. "They haven't said we failed either." As they crossed the boundary, the environment changed again. Space itself seemed denser, as if reality had weight. Sensors behaved strangely. Time measurements drifted slightly out of sync. Scientists whispered theories, but no one fully understood what they were entering. They emerged into a vast inner chamber of space, artificial yet beautiful. Massive rings of light rotated slowly around a dark core. Energy flowed like rivers, bending and reshaping the void. At the center waited the alien queen, not on a throne, not behind guards. She floated alone. This alone unsettled the humans more than any display of power. The queen did not need protection here. Elias and a small delegation transferred to a diplomatic vessel and approached cautiously. When they reached the agreed distance, the queen's voice filled the ship, calm and clear. "You have completed the trial," she said. A wave of relief swept through the crew, but Elias held his expression steady. He knew better than to assume victory too early. "Then humanity remains free?" he asked. The queen did not answer immediately. "You endured," she said instead. "You adapted, you cooperated. These are qualities we value." "Then what was it for?" "Again and again. Other species seek stability," she said. "They desire an end to struggle. They accept integration because it promises certainty." "That," she said, "is precisely the problem." "We are not conquerors," she said. "We are caretakers." "But control also prevents growth." "We have reached the limits of what we are," she said. "The hive endures, but it does not evolve." In others, humanity remained independent, chaotic, unpredictable, and in a few rare paths, humanity stood beside the hive, not beneath it. "Independence carries risk," the queen said. "Unchecked, you could destabilize entire regions of the galaxy. Which is why we must decide what kind of risk you are." "There is another choice," she said. Elias stiffened. "Another. This has never been attempted. You will make mistakes that affect more than your own worlds." Instead, he requested time. The queen allowed it. Back aboard the human command ship, debate erupted. Some feared the responsibility. Others feared hive influence. But many felt something new: recognition. "They don't see us as children," Dr. Camel said, "or tools. We don't grow by being protected from consequences. We grow by facing them together." So are we. Civilizations that had lived for centuries under the shadow of the hive paused and listened. Species that had surrendered choice for safety felt something stir. Curiosity, fear, and hope mixed together. Humanity returned to its space, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as something new. Captain Elias Rowan stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching the planet turn slowly below. Blue oceans, white clouds, a world that argued, failed, rebuilt, and tried again every single day. He had seen it through the Queen's eyes now, not as weak, but as unfinished. Behind him, Admiral Chen joined quietly. "The first joint council will begin soon," she said. "I know," Elias replied. "That's what worries me. Not because of war, but because of an ancient technology left behind by a long-dead species. The energy output was growing fast. If it collapsed, the explosion would wipe out multiple inhabited systems. The hive response was immediate and precise. They calculated containment scenarios, isolation fields, controlled sacrifices of uninhabited worlds to absorb the blast. The human response was different. They asked questions. Why was the technology built that way? Could it be shut down instead of contained? Was there a way to save everyone, not just most? The first joint council session was tense. Hive representatives spoke with certainty. Containment ensures survival. Probability of total loss reduced to near zero. Camel spoke carefully. Near zero isn't zero, and containment still destroys lives. The alien queen herself joined the session, her presence steady and overwhelming even through projection. "Explain," she said to Elias. "We don't believe problems should be solved by choosing who gets erased," Elias said. "We believe in trying until every option is exhausted. And also to progress." They did not try to dominate the system. They studied its behavior. They listened to its patterns. They adjusted in small steps instead of one massive solution. Several times failure seemed certain. Several times humans almost gave up. But they didn't. At the last moment the energy stabilized. The ancient machine powered down, not destroyed, not contained, understood. The star system was saved. Across Hive space, observers reevaluated their models. "That outcome was inefficient," a strategist said. "But effective," the Queen replied. The partnership continued. Not smoothly, not easily. Humans argued with Hive logic. Hive systems clashed with human unpredictability. Decisions took longer, mistakes happened. But something else happened too. The Hive began to change. They started allowing limited autonomy to integrated species, guided by human frameworks of choice. They began to experiment with controlled uncertainty, and humanity changed as well. They learned restraint, scale, responsibility. They learned that defiance without wisdom could be just as dangerous as obedience without thought. Years passed. The galaxy did not become peaceful. But it became alive. When threats emerged from beyond known space, it was humanity's adaptability that found weaknesses. When crises of scale arose, it was Hive coordination that prevented collapse. Together, they became something neither could be alone. Elias grew older. His hair turned gray. New generations took his place, but his name remained known, not as a hero, but as a reminder of a moment when fear did not make the decision. On the anniversary of the trial's end, Elias was invited once more into Hive space. He stood again before the alien queen. "You have changed us," she said. "So have you," Elias replied. She studied him, then smiled, the same smile that had once frozen him in place. "Do you regret your choice?" she asked. Elias thought of the struggles, the losses, the endless debates. "No," he said, "because we're still choosing." "And necessary." And the galaxy watched them carefully, not with fear, but with respect. The alien queen remained alone, gazing into the stars. For the first time in her long existence, she did not seek certainty. She smiled at the unknown.